Welcome to another edition of Minor Obsession. Scott Lieberman joined with Sean Newton in the studio. Very excited to have you back in one-on-one, face-to-face for a normal episode. And it's an exciting episode, hence why we had to get here in person together. We're talking about the bowl, baby. It's almost game time. Sean, I'm pumped. Are you pumped?
I'm ecstatic. One of us is going to be down in the Bahamas, cheering that team on from the stands. I really wanted to be here in person just so I could see the eyes droop down in disappointment and self-pity. As I said, I'll be in the Bahamas supporting our team while you're at home, quote, working. But I'm stoked. I think there's a lot of fans planning on going. I know that there was some disappointment when it was the Bahamas where it's a little more difficult to get to. I get it. My stance is every game's difficult to get to. Unless we magically got the Bilk Bowl, it's going to be a tough road. Most of them are over Christmas week, which a lot of people have family plans, even if they're already off work. So I think there was going to be some disappointment regardless of what bowl we went to. Someone was going to have to travel, and it wasn't going to work out for everybody. So tough road there. I found a way to make it work. I think quite a few other fans have figured out a way to make it work. It's tough to miss the first bowl game ever, and I am ready to get down to the Bahamas. I don't know if I'm going to be healing it with my shirt off all weekend, but we'll see. Maybe. See if he gives me something to root for. What do you think about the matchup?
Sorry, you're making me so sad as you talk about your Bahamas trip. But, I just wanted to make sure that you could bond with your father and, have that moment together. I don't want to third wheel it. So, yeah, I'm pumped about the game. I think, we're not going to one of the main bowls, obviously. So this is a great bowl to be in. We had a week where we were the only bowl announced, which is pretty cool. And now we're going to kick off bowl season, right? It's going to be on ESPN on Friday afternoon. I know the time isn't necessarily ideal from a travel standpoint, but like you said, a lot of people are making it work. But it's great from a viewing standpoint. I can go to work, leave at lunchtime, and go watch the game from home, get some pizza, whatever, So I think it's a 2 o'clock game is actually pretty fun from a viewing on TV standpoint. So I think all of that works out really well. Buffalo's an interesting matchup, which I know we can get into now, or when we do our real preview of the game, we can talk about that as well. But one of the few teams considered for the AAC. So wouldn't it be cool as a wrestling fan? Wouldn't it be cool if they just were like, we're going to make this bowl actually interesting and matter. Stipulation, winner gets into the AAC.
That would be pretty cool. And I was going to bring that up too. I mean, it's a very interesting setup where Buffalo, one of the most highly considered AAC teams, Charlotte, one of the more highly considered AAC teams, go head-to-head, and I think it does. And maybe it won't be touted by Vince McMahon as being a money-in-the-bank match where the winner gets the title, but I think that could play some implications down the road for the American didn't fill their spot. It's still sitting out there ripe for the taking. They're just waiting, taking some time to figure out who the right person is.
And
both
making their
schools,
TV revenue money.
And making their TV
don't make
revenue
them sound
money.
better than they are.
I'm not making them sound better, but honestly, if you're them, that's just shrewd business, right? Like
100%.
None of the teams made the most amount of sense right away. Nobody was like, Charlotte's got a great story to it. It's building. It's got some good stuff coming down the pipe. It's in a huge city that is one of the largest cities in the country, so the TV market's definitely there. But the winning hasn't quite been there yet. Buffalo, on the other side, has had the winning recently. They're in a larger city in the country, but football's newer. And so there's some things you have to think about along the way. And I think that the choice to not fill it was less about, hey, let's continue to split the revenue money, and more about, hey, there's just not an obvious candidate right now who's performing at the caliber that we want to move into so that we can continue to bill ourselves as the group, the P6 team,
Sure.
or P6 conference. So you got to be a little particular if you're going to try and tell yourself you're as good as the other Power 5 conferences. And so I think that this will play a role in next year or the year after when they finally fill that spot. Could it be us? Could it be Buffalo? Probably. And is it going to be who wins this game? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
It would be cool, though,
It would be cool.
if that was the bowl stipulation.
Yeah.
Winner gets into the conference, and you make a big to-do about it. But, I just thought that was an interesting tidbit. I know we talked about that a little bit, but I thought about it more from the entertainment standpoint, since every bowl game really doesn't matter except the Big Four playoff.
The other thing I really like about this, too, that people will harp on, but I appreciate, is the stadium down in the Bahamas is the same size as our stadium, which I think is cool. A lot of bowl games, when you watch them online, there's tons of empty seats around, and that still might be the case here because it's a little bit of a hike to get to from Buffalo and Charlotte. But if there's 1,000, 2,000 people that go for each team, that makes that stadium look a lot more full than some of these 60,000 seat stadiums that these bowl games are at. And it feels like home, right? Like it's almost the exact same size as our stadium. It's in a beautiful tropical location. I think that plays well for our boys, and it's definitely a well-deserved holiday for them where they get to play a game on a national stage and spend some time at the beach.
Yeah, and very cool that, within 1 year of Will Healy having his introductory press conference, the next year he's at the Bahamas with the head coach of Buffalo getting ready for a bowl game.
Yep.
So very cool stuff on the horizon. Very excited. We will talk a lot more about this in the upcoming week. We plan to release on our regular Tuesday cadence, so we'll have a episode for you Tuesday before the bowl game, so you can download that, listen to it on your plane ride, get really excited.
Breaking down the numbers,
making predictions, looking at lines.
Spoiler alert, we think Charlotte's going to win.
Yeah.
But we'll tell you why next week.
Yeah. So let's pivot. We've got basketball going on. That's kind of the heartbeat now that soccer is done and the baseball and everything isn't really starting till next semester. So let's start with women's basketball. Having a really nice season thus far. 6-2. And Coach Consuegra got her 150th win.
That was exciting.
Which is really cool. They didn't win the tournament in Puerto Rico because there was no winner, but they won all their games. So that was good. So far, like we said, 6-2. One kind of loss at home to Fordham, which was unexpected.
Called a hiccup.
A hiccup, yep. And then the other loss was to number 14 Kentucky, which is expected. So 6-2, doing good things, going on the road, winning games.
Yeah, I think that Kentucky for me was interesting because if anybody paid attention, 39-86 is not a great scoreboard to have, obviously. But the ball just wasn't going in the bucket for us. Shot 18 for 56 from the field, which is really difficult to win, especially when you're going in and playing a top power team, top 25 team in the country. All of our starters seem to struggle on the offensive side of the floor. Nobody in double figures for scoring on the game as a whole. And just really tough to win like that, especially with a team with a high-powered offense on the other side. You can hope to slow them down, but if you're only going to put up 39 points, it's really tough to keep somebody else that low too. So I thought that this was probably a good learning experience of what is the type of talent we would see if we went to postseason play this year, and how do we be ready for it. One of the guys I like to mirror as I think through teams is Michigan State. Never seems to be one of the highly ranked teams. They always play a tough non-conference schedule where they have top-ranked teams come into town or they go and visit them, and they often fly under the radar, are a 4 to 8 seed going into the tournament and then end up in the Final Four regularly because they've tested themselves. And so I think this, although it's a mark as a loss on the schedule, gives you a lot of learning opportunities to grow, and nobody goes into basketball season going undefeated the entire way. So this is just one that you got to learn to grow from and make sure you take the right notes away and remember how this felt and make sure it doesn't happen again, especially to teams that you should be beating.
For sure. And now we've got a little bit of a hiatus for the next 2 weeks, and then we play Delaware is it at home? I think it is at home. It's a weird time, 11:30 in the morning. And Delaware is a pretty solid team. They've had WNBA talent come through there. So that should be a good test. And then I really like the at Davidson the Saturday before Christmas.
It's a cool game.
That's a fun one. I'm glad that's now on the regular schedule. That wasn't really happening for the women. I like the rivalry being on both sides. So very cool there. But yeah, 6-2, great season so far. And of course, like I always like to shout out Jade Phillips, just
Doing her thing.
doing her thing.
Yeah, in general, I mean, I think it is pretty nice, the team statistics that we're talking about. Even if you get away from talking about Jade or Mariah Linney or Octavia or anybody else, we're looking good. We're outscoring our opponents, even factoring in the 39-point scoring loss to Kentucky. We're still outscoring opponents 522 points to 506. That's averaging 65.3 points a game, which is pretty nice to always be outscoring. It helps when you're 6-2 to make that number work. But shooting 41% from the field, and more importantly, 73% from the free throw line. So coming away with points there is always good. And being able to make buckets work in your favor is always important. So I think really as we look towards the second half of the season, we're going to continue to see that climb, continue to be on a good offensive scoring side of things. We've got a lot of pieces that really work well together and fit for a good game plan. And excited to see how the girls do in conference play.
For sure. I think the women will finish strong and projected, I believe it was 5th in the conference preseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's likely going to change. And do we know, this is a question for you that you probably don't have the answer to, but thinking out loud here.
Yep.
Are they doing the same thing with women with the
bonus play?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Give me 1 second and I'll tell you. Yeah, they have bonus play.
Okay. Cool. Well, I like that. I think we should definitely, again, judging by how we're playing and the strength of schedule, like you said, with tough teams like Kentucky, I think we should do well and be in that top 4 where we get to be in the top echelon of the conference and get those bonus play games against good teams.
Agreed. Currently, we're actually in standings-wise 5th, which is right where you mentioned we were projected, but the top teams, UTEP and Western Kentucky and ODU, all have 7 wins, so they're just 1 win ahead of us. It's kind of quite a few teams stretched in the pack here. So,
and again, this is their non-conference. Who are they playing versus who
exactly.
are we playing? Well, good stuff there. Pivoting over to men's basketball, they've been on a little run of their own. At least they do well when I attend games. So after the dig at the bowl, I went to UNC Wilmington this weekend.
You did.
And followed the men's basketball team while Sean had kid things to do.
I mean,
so
you were really in Fayetteville for wrestling. Let's just call a spade here. You were following WWE to Fayetteville and then realized you could drive just a little further to make it to Wilmington.
Hey, whatever works. You know, I like to support the team. It was cool to be a part of their first road win of the season. I felt like I contributed to that all the way in my up against the wall, top seat in the stadium. But moral of the story is it was a great view, great game. Fans were really nice. We looked awesome the first half against Wilmington. We were destroying them. We held them to 6 points for a long period of time, and I believe 4 of those 6 points were free throws. And yeah, it was getting kind of out of hand. I was feeling somewhat bad for them. We must have gone on a 20 to 25-0 run, and they caught a little bit of fire, got a lucky kind of half-court shot to get a little momentum going into the end of the first half, got up to 18 points. They scored, I think it was 41-18 or something like that at halftime. And they went on a run in the second half. I got nervous. They got within 10 or 13. But we seemed to weather the storm. Crowd was really getting into it. Coach Sanchez made a timely timeout. And every time they seemed to get momentum with a and one or a 3, mostly threes, we would go right back down on the other side of the court, and Shepard make a big layup, or Bamba had a great game and would make something, or Supako. We really were dominating on the inside with post moves and drives and things like that. So, yeah, we weathered the storm. I was a little nervous about that. Like I said, first road win of the season, so didn't know if we had a little anxiety there since the JMU game we kind of had handily and kind of lost that towards the end, and then we lost the game in overtime
Georgia State.
Against Georgia State. Thank you very much. So we've had some close ones on the road that we haven't really been able to close out. So it was good to get a win. And I didn't realize it was our first time playing Wilmington in 20 years since 1995. That's crazy. 25 years? I don't understand why that isn't a regular, because we play App on the regular, we play ECU on the regular, and it's not like those schools are these great basketball programs. You think they are?
I mean, there's a little more of a name to them than UNCW. No offense to any UNCW fans listening, but
I mean, UNCW made the tournament in the last couple of years with our players.
Yeah, but they had Coach Keats. They got lucky, and then they lost him immediately. But in general, it's tough unless you're a perennial powerhouse to warrant much discussion without having football around, which they don't. We used to live that life, we know, but we were going to the tournament year after year for quite some time there, or at least every other year, and now I've hit a rough patch. But not to talk trash, but I mean, they probably just don't make their way in. They've got their own tier of schools that they're playing in non-conference play, and we've got our own schools that we like to schedule in non-conference play, and so it just hasn't happened. But it was nice to know that after 25 years we can still own them.
Yeah, I believe. And shout out to Rex Backus, UNCW alumni. They've never beaten us ever.
Ooh.
So
that kind of tells you why we don't play them regularly, right?
And that's why Chapel Hill doesn't play us regularly.
But I'd say in general, too, not talking about specifics, because I do have my own thoughts about the Asheville game. But in general, I'm really inspired by how close most of our games are right now. It's a stark contrast from last year and the year before and quite a few years that we've been seeing. And the fight's there, the shots aren't always there. Our defense is capable of slowing down anybody, it seems like, and our offense loves to work the clock down, which limits the number of possessions for the other team. But if you're going to run the shot clock down, you got to be able to get a good shot. And so some teams we've been matched up really well against where we can get some good cuts to the basket and get easy layups. Other teams who have figured that out and forced us to stay on the perimeter have really shown a weakness in our ability to be able to shoot threes and even mid-range jumpers. And so I think knowing the type of ball Coach Sanchez wants to play, I like where we're at. I think you can get people better at shooting. I think some of it might be nerves early on in the season. People aren't quite in mid-season form, and we may be getting ready to see that. But in general, the system he has seems to work. Will it take another year or two before we've got some players that really fit well and we've got an entire roster full of Coach Sanchez players? Maybe. But we're 4-4 right now. That's half the wins that we had last year already, and we're only 8 games into the season. So the 15-win mark that we kind of talked about at the beginning of the season seems very well within reach and may even be understatement. As far as Asheville goes, I thought that they had the perfect game plan for us. They aggravated us on the offensive side of the floor. They were bodying us. They were reaching in. They were really trying to do anything they could to disrupt us, and we looked very uncomfortable on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, we did great, held us in the game. We went on a couple runs where we either had it tied or maybe took the lead for a minute, but just couldn't quite keep it going where we could continue to get buckets on our end and stop the ball on the other end. And so in the end, ended up being outscored in the second half, 49-45 to take the lead. But I really liked the fight we had and continued to really drive towards a win like we've seen on every game that we've lost this year.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the evolution of the team from losing to Davidson handily last year at Davidson to now. You can see the players that have stayed with the program and were here last year really develop as players and leaders and getting comfortable within Coach Sanchez's system. And you can see the new players kind of fitting right in, like we've talked about a lot with Bamba and Edwards, those graduate students are really a nice touch, I think, that gives us that veteran leadership. You can see Shepard's been itching to play since last year, so he was a part of that team last year without ever really getting on the court, and he's definitely made a difference. And then, I was concerned about before the season started, Malik Martin playing. He didn't do too much against UNCW, but at the South Carolina Upstate game, he was crushing it.
Yep.
And it was awesome because I took my mom to that game, and she's like, who's your favorite player? I was like, that guy right there. And then he just started making threes right in her face. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the future looks bright for the team. Like you said, we've got the people in place. He's working with them to get them the opportunities they need. I think that we've got several other individuals on the bench who are going to continue to grow through practice and things like that, and maybe contributors later in the season, if not early next season. And we've got a couple more non-conference games to close out the non-conference schedule. We've got Valparaiso coming to town December 16th, which I'm excited about. They're a basketball school. They've got a history of going to the NCAA tournament quite a bit and have always been very focused on basketball. So I'd like to see them come to town. That's a cool game to have that you don't get to see regularly. I'm not even sure if we've ever played them, to tell you the truth. And then you've got Maryland Eastern Shore, again at home December 19th, and then away at ECU December 22nd to round out the non-conference schedule.
Yeah, and I think our non-conference, we've kind of laughed about our schedule preseason.
Yep.
But I think we've had some good games, and the games that we were circling on the calendar of real tests, we've really shown up and came to play. And, we'll see how conference play turns out. But I'm really bullish on this team, and I just think we're going to exceed expectations. I know we were talking about 16 over under, trying to double that win count over the last couple of years, make the Conference USA tournament finally. Only 2 teams don't make it, and we seem to find the way not to make it. I'm really bullish. I really think we're going to win the Conference USA tournament or something great. And I'd see tournament. I really do.
Well, we probably have to win the Conference USA tournament to have a shot at that. So I don't think we're getting 2 teams in. Maybe. Western Kentucky has looked pretty good this year. I'd look for them to probably filter to the top. They just got a huge win over Arkansas the other day. But right now we're sitting middle of the pack, 4-4, top of the conference right now, 7 wins roughly. So we've got a little work to do in conference play, but again, we can make it happen.
We already have 50% of last year's wins, and we haven't even gotten to conference play.
I know. And there's everybody knows Conference USA is not a strong basketball school. That's why we get 1 team in.
Yeah.
We could cross our fingers for 2 this year and hope. But the tough part is, regardless of whether we've had some good tests, they don't look good on paper. So that's the tough part is it'll be a tough sell even if we ran the table in Conference USA and ended up with or ran the table for the rest of the year and ended up with 4 losses. Still going to be a tough argument without winning the conference tournament to be able to say our strength of schedule, our RPI, our list of opponents that we've beaten is strong enough to warrant a seed in the NCAA tournament. NIT for sure, but I think we've got a lot of work in front of us if we're going to make a tournament appearance.
Sure. And an NIT would still be awesome yeah.
We've had, 2 of those since 2005. One was Nebraska, where we got to see Lemeyer Goldwire get annoyed all day by being double-teamed, and we had no answer there. And then the other one was under Major, and I can't even remember who we played there. Maybe Purdue? I don't even remember. Yeah. I've blocked it out, honestly, to tell you the truth.
It's fair. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm feeling bullish. I know, like we said, 15 wins. I'm taking over 18, maybe even in the 20 range.
That would be nice.
I just feel real good. I've like I said, I've seen the evolution of the team, and I think it's very noticeable even for those that aren't necessarily basketball aficionados. I know
going to every game.
I took my girlfriend to some games last season, and then we went to the Wilmington game, and she was like, "Wow, they look way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
So,
I think we see that on the football field too. So it's really inspiring altogether what we're seeing out there compared to what we've seen in the past. You got to go back to 2012 for our last 21 game season. Over 21 season.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And it was Providence, not Purdue, sorry.
You knew it was a P.
Yep. But that was back in the A-10 days when we had a lot more basketball-oriented schools that we could build up our strength of schedule and really warrant things. Now we've really got to make a splash to make it worth it. So as the team builds, I'd hope Mike Hill's looking to schedule stronger and stronger non-conference schedules to help warrant that argument at the end of the year, which I'm sure that's top of mind for him. But there's no point to get those on the books now if we're not at that point.
For sure. And we'll make sure to ask Mike Hill some of those tough questions when we get him back on the pod, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, as we do another edition of Climbing the Hill with Mike Hill.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, anything else you want to talk about, Sean?
No, I'm ready to break down the bowl game, get down to the Bahamas, watch them win, beat Buffalo to get our first ever appearance and victory, and then come back and tell you how sad I am that you missed that in person.
Well, you can bring me home some gear.
Maybe. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, good stuff by the Niners. What a difference 1 year has made. We've been doing Miner Obsession for just over a year, and man, have we seen the programs evolve in all aspects. So good stuff from Mike Hill and team. Great hires, and those hires are really doing their thing. Looking forward to baseball season and everything else coming up, and we'll have an interview with one of our baseball coaches, Bo Robinson, in the next couple weeks, talking about how that transition to one coach to another, he's still there, and why he stayed, and how important Charlotte is to him as a former player and coach.
You don't know Bo until you hear a podcast with him. Get it? See what I did there?
I think I did.
All right. Well, until next time, be sure to keep up with us on social media, Miner_Obsession for all of that. Feel free to reach out through email if you want to, minerobsession49@gmail.com. And as always, till we talk to you again, wear green.
And go Niners.